Okay, here's our last little session to wrap up output in the two good model. This is going to leave you in a position to answer the first output question that would come in a test or an exam. In a test or an exam, you'd be given the information about production and prices of the sort that we've been working with in this little example. And you'd end up making these 4 calculations. And I'm hoping that by reviewing our little video sessions, you'll understand what the ideas and meanings are in the calculation of these output values. The key point to recognize is it will either use year 1 as the base, using the prices of $1 per loaf and $5 per suit to value year 1 production and to value year 2 production. And we get $7.50 and $8.75 as our output values. And then if instead we use year 2 as our base, then we can also calculate a valid measure of output, a valid measure of real output, that is. And we notice that these base year 2 values are simply twice as big as the year base year 1 values, and that's because the prices in year 2 are simply double the prices of year 1. So let's think about the comparisons that you're going to be making and making sense of those. The ultimate goal is simply to be able to recognize that the real output in this hypothetical economy in year 2 is 116, to be precise, 116.6 repeater percent, or if you want 116 and 2/3% if you're good at arithmetic. But anyhow, roughly 117% more real output in year 2 than in year 1. I want you to make sense of those values by thinking about how the food production is 120% as much in year 2 as in year 1. The clothing production is 110% as much in year 2 as it was in year 1. And I hope it makes sense that 117%, something between the 110 and the 120, is a sensible answer to the question of how year 2 output compares to year 1 output in this simple model where the only goods are the 2 goods. But I think you could easily imagine adding a whole bunch more columns to describe a whole bunch more goods, and you're still going to have the same fundamental idea. Now, to close, let's just be aware of a couple other comparisons that might trip you up if you aren't careful, so they're worth looking at. Look at that. Other comparisons. Think about what happens if you compare base year 2 values to base year 1 values, 1500 over 1750 or 1750 or 875. Both cases, we've got the ratio of 2, and that simply is reminding us that prices doubled. If you're ever doing a typical test question and you get some kind of simple answer like this that seems wrong but seems right, you go, oh, whoa, yeah, there's my 2-to-1 ratio. And make sure that you don't end up mixing up which way these columns and rows go and end up, perhaps by mistake, having 1750 and 1500 here and having the 875 and 1750 there. That might happen just because you didn't think through what the meaning of these 4 values are. Now the final point to note is to come back to this idea of nominal output and notice the danger of failing to recognize that prices are different in the 2 years, creating the possibility of making a nominal output comparison, the 1750 to the 750. Put a big X there. Oops, you can't see that. Here, look at that X. See that X? Put a big X there because that is no good. If you want, think it through logically. 1750 over 750. 1750, that's 2 times 875. Look at the way we've got prices have doubled. That's part of the effect we were measuring, but also getting the production effect of the 875. So what we're doing really is simply saying 2 times 875 over 750. So we're doubling our valid comparison of outputs and ending up with a comparison that's twice as big as it ought to be. If you wanted to describe the nominal output values, you say year 2 nominal output is 233.33% of year 1 nominal output. That's a truthful statement, but it's misleading, and it's worth understanding, but probably not worth saying or writing down in case it might confuse you. Okay, so let's get you to go to the webpage, practice questions, and try some of the simple questions. The key point in tests and exams for me is you'll see with these simple problems, it's going to simply have you compare. When you're asked to compare outputs, you will be able to come up with a simple and valid comparison. The next step in our discussion of outputs is to look at a world where things aren't so simple. But that will be another day. So bye for now.